Far beyond our solar system, outside of the light of the Milky Way, in the starless void known as dark space, a horrifying, strange, and deadly predator patiently slumbers in the blackness. They're known here in the Mass Effect series as the Reapers, a sentient race of ancient machines that awaken just once every 50,000 years with one simple goal: to thoroughly and methodically exterminate all advanced life in our galaxy. It's a cycle that has repeated now for millions or potentially even billions of years. Their coming is inevitable, the destruction unimaginable. Well, hey, no pressure there, Mr. Shepard, but stopping this incomprehensible calamity, which at the time of the games is very near at hand, that's the main narrative hook of the original 3 Mass Effect titles, which many hail to this day to be the greatest video game trilogy of all time. Now, personally, I have always found the Reapers to be very, very cool. A wonderful and unique approach to video game antagonism for so many reasons. But my favorite thing about them by far is how they establish this generally chaotic, galactic-scale tone, which is fertile narrative soil for other, arguably more interesting villains to take root and grow. Villains like the legendary and criminally overlooked Saren Arterius, the very first antagonist of Mass Effect 1, who carries the bulk of the storytelling burden in that game with such an incredible presence and memorable justifications for his actions, that I think now, almost 20 years later, he is far and away the best written evil in this entire franchise. A character whose brutal scheme is tied directly to those Reapers and their cycle of death. A character whose personal story is full of mystery, betrayal, manipulation, and crippling fear. A character who absolutely challenges the protagonist on how things in the galaxy should or shouldn't be handled, yet still remains satisfyingly rotten at his core from the beginning to the bitter end. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Villainpedia, a video series where we take long looks at the most evil characters video games have to offer and try to get to the bottom of what makes each one of them special. I am Ghost, your host. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who support this channel away from the tyranny of YouTube. And now, I invite all of you to just sit back and relax as we head for the far reaches of the cosmos to cover one of the most underrated video game villains of our time. Ever since I was a kid, I have been fascinated with how science fiction and fantasy settings approach the world-building aspect of alien species in relation to humans. In The Lord of the Rings, for example, hobbits, elves, dwarves, and men all have their very different foundational natures reflected in the ways that they behave, the ways they build society, and of course, the ways in which they interact with one another, which gives Middle-earth a wonderful array of diverse perspectives and tensions. Then you have Star Trek, and to a lesser degree Star Wars, which do a great job in a more relevant science fiction setting with the very same things, exploring how the potential for both cooperation and xenophobia might not just be human nature, but the nature of intelligent life all throughout our universe. Now, I say all this because if we're looking at Saren here and his role as a villain, it is incredibly important to understand his identity, his race, his job, and how these things fit into the greater story structure with the Reapers, Commander Shepard, and everything that comes after. So Mass Effect takes place in the 22nd century, in a future where mankind extended their reach to the stars above and discovered something incredible in their very own backyard. Ruins on the surface of Mars left by a hyper-advanced alien race thousands of years prior. And within these ruins, they unearthed, or I guess unmarsed, information that catapulted humans' technological capabilities hundreds of years forward in an instant. They found data on something called mass relays, these humongous ancient superstructures floating all around the Milky Way that could be turned on and used as a transportation system, essentially teleporting their starships across time and space to neighboring solar systems in the blink of an eye. Super ambitious missions that were once deemed impossible could now be completed over a long weekend, and soon enough, as is our nature, humans were colonizing all across the galaxy, enjoying a golden age of advancement and cosmic exploration. But of course, it didn't take long for the eagerness of mankind to bump into some trouble and encounter their very first alien neighbors, a species known as the Turians. Because what the humans didn't understand is that there were already many other species out there using and caring for these mass relays with kind of strict government regulations about which ones could and couldn't be activated. So when mankind unknowingly booted up one that was restricted, these Turians, acting as a sort of police force, immediately leapt into action to stop them. But what's kind of messed up is instead of saying like, hey fellas, don't be alarmed, but we are the first super intelligent life forms your species has ever encountered, they actually just came out blasting, beginning what came to be known as the First Contact War. A conflict that had a profound effect on galactic history and an even more profound effect on a young Turian just beginning his military career, Saren Arterius. Now, this wasn't a crazy bloody affair that killed millions on either side or anything like that, just a few months long dust-up where these two very powerful, pretty evenly matched species got off to a bitter and awkward start with one another before eventually having peace brokered by the other cooperative races. So mankind obviously realized that they were not as alone as they previously thought, and beyond the Turians even, there were all these other intelligent life forms working alongside each other aboard this thing called the Citadel, a massive space station that acted as the home base of Milky Way politics and commerce, and of course, they wanted in. But even as everyone shook hands and humans were welcomed into the fold, an understandable level of tension and apprehension remained between these two races that would not be easily expunged. So with that little backdrop, let's narrow our scope here now and focus more directly on Saren, who is obviously a member of the Turian race, and as I just mentioned, had entered the military actually as a teenager just 2 years before the First Contact War broke out, which to me makes it very likely that his first brush with real life or death battle was against these strange alien rule-breaking invaders, the humans. Now, unfortunately, we don't really get to learn anything about Saren's time serving, as within the literal lore of Mass Effect, his personal files are confidential. However, if you like comic books, there's actually a supplemental prequel story found in Mass Effect Evolution, which details how Saren once had an older brother, Decius, who served as a general in the First Contact War and was wrapped up in a crazy conspiracy, ultimately getting killed in his fight with the humans. Now, this obviously would be a huge personal loss to darken the mind of this villain very early on in his story, but I don't know. Many fans out there, myself included, definitely prefer to ignore this kind of stuff. I mean, the comic came out years after Mass Effect 1, and I'm far more interested in what the original game story alone can give us, but it is out there if you're interested. Now, when looking at the different principal races of Mass Effect, Turians are generally written to be a militaristic people. One that values service, sacrifice, honor, and very strict discipline. And when it comes to those core virtues, it seems that Saren was always a shining example. He very quickly gained a reputation for being an efficient, intelligent, and lethal soldier, ascending up the military ranks to a level of fame and heroism that was just unprecedented for a Turian so young, until he eventually captured the attention of an elite organization known as the Spectres. So if we think of the Citadel as the center of galactic government, the highest governing body of the galaxy would be the Citadel Council, a small group of only 3 officials representing the 3 most powerful and trustworthy species in Citadel space, the Asari, the Solarians, and the Turians. So the Spectres, which is short for Special Tactics and Reconnaissance, are pretty much that council's secret task force of interstellar agents, hand-selected to help maintain galactic stability no matter the cost. They're sort of a cross between like cosmic cowboys and 00 agents from James Bond. Spectres are considered completely above all laws and regulations, given total freedom of movement and execution in completing the missions that they are given by the Council. So if you're a soldier, a detective, a security guard, shoot, if you're a janitor, joining the Spectres is the highest honor there is in Citadel space. Well, after proving himself through unknown deeds, Saren became the youngest Turian Spectre ever selected, and from the second he got his credentials, wasted 0 time establishing himself as one of the finest on the force, excelling in the freedom that this new occupation gave him, the independence to make his own decisions in the field without any consequence. And though some of his peers criticized his at times ruthless or cold methods, no one could deny that this guy got the job done. And I mean, imagine the kind of things that a Spectre would have to deal with on a galactic scale, man. Pirates, rebellions, huge smuggling operations, corruption, literally anything you can think of in a sci-fi setting. And so over the course of a decade or 2 of service like this, Saren became the Council's ace in the hole, the best of the best, and a living legend. However, During this time of rapid success and glory for our villain, another force was gaining recognition and fanfare with unprecedented expediency: humans. Achieving in decades what other races strived for over centuries, establishing an embassy in the heart of the Citadel, constructing massive colonies on key worlds, contributing scientifically and culturally to the galactic community. They were suddenly a huge player, and this made many non-humans, including Saren, exceptionally bitter and openly critical of the preferential treatment given how they first entered the equation. So you can see a nice little evil foundation coming together here. It's not a stretch whatsoever to call Saren a proud xenophobe, a speciesist, a straight-up hater of mankind. A guy who started his career fighting these ignorant aliens only to now be asked to accept them as his neighbors and co-workers. You even learn during the course of the game that he has a ton of personal history and beef with the famous Captain Anderson, who he sabotaged on several occasions in the past to ensure he would never become the first human Spectre. Then, personality-wise, Saren sees himself as superior to literally any and everyone in the galaxy, even fellow Turians. He knows he's the top dog in the Spectres. He knows he can back up that reputation. He knows he can essentially do whatever the hell he wants. So in the years leading up to Mass Effect 1, this guy is constantly searching for anything he can do, big or small, to hurt the progress of humans. But now, let's go back to the topic that this video started with. The Reapers. Because as fun as the racist alien cop is, these strange machines represent a threat so existential it honestly trivializes every other storyline and character found in Mass Effect. And remember too that before the first game, not a living soul in the galaxy is even aware of their existence. It would sound preposterous, hilarious even, if someone were to come to the council and say, hey guys, a horde of evil robots are gonna wake up and come kill everyone soon. So the Reaper's greatest weapon, as it likely has been for millions and millions of years, is the element of surprise. But something very interesting that Citadel space does have, and it is something of an obsession for many within the Mass Effect universe, is the mysterious ruins of a massive spacefaring, approximately 50,000-year-old civilization that litter the entire Milky Way. They're called the Protheans, and here in Mass Effect 1 anyway, they kinda remind me of the Dwemer from the Elder Scrolls series. These ultra-modern, ancient people that seemingly just went poof, disappearing one day and leaving behind all of these incredible things. Because get this, the Citadel itself, the mass relays, the infrastructure that all these species use and enjoy, they did not build any of it. They discovered it just like the humans did. Vacant, well-maintained, and seemingly waiting for them to power up. So it's kind of understandably believed that the Protheans were responsible for all of this. But here's the real kicker, ladies and gentlemen. Once upon a time ago when the Protheans were first expanding into space, they discovered the exact same things. And that is because, and this is a huge spoiler for Mass Effect 1, all of these things were constructed by the Reapers an immeasurably long time ago. A technological mousetrap with a big-ass piece of cheese on it that sentient life forms have been falling for eons, rapidly advancing them, evolving these species until the Reapers deem them ready for harvest. Which conjures so many questions, right? Why are the Reapers doing this? What even are they? Who built them? What is their endgame? Well, sorry guys, but this video is about my dog Saren and Saren alone. Now next, I'm gonna have to ask you to look at this thing. No, I'm not joking, you gotta look at it. And I mean, really take it in, baby, don't blink.
What?
Adorable, isn't he? Well, these strange buggers, as far back as history can tell us in the lore of Mass Effect, have been present on the Citadel as a group of caretakers. They're called the Keepers, and they are very, very strange. Keepers are completely docile and don't communicate with anyone in any way, behaving more like mute servants or butlers, ensuring the current Citadel races are comfortable, the place is clean, and remaining operational. They kinda just appear randomly, working on these mysterious terminals, doing God knows what, before disappearing off to God knows where. And guess what? These little cuties are yet another creation of the Reapers. Some fans theorize that this is one of the first races the Reapers wiped out millions of years ago, and they partially enslaved a small sect of them, now indoctrinated to be these mindless servants. But the reason they serve on the Citadel is everything to the plot of Mass Effect 1. This place is treated like this utopian garden of diplomacy and progress, a gift from those who came before, but none of these goofballs know that they are living on a huge mass relay. The mass relay that connects to dark space where the Reapers are waiting in hibernation. It's the portal that they have poured through every 50,000 years to harvest the galaxy time and time again. So, okay, let's now take all of that absurd information and follow this thread back to our favorite hater. How does Saren Arterius, a mere Turian, a Spectre, tap into all of this stuff? How does he become such an effective video game villain? Well, allow me to introduce to the equation one of the most interesting characters / things in this entire franchise. A Reaper, one single Reaper, who instead of hanging out in dark space with his kin, has been hiding here in the Milky Way since the previous extermination. This Reaper's name is Sovereign, and though he may look to us like a huge tentacle-themed starship, he is indeed an unfathomably old sentient machine that has spent millennia here in a state of half hibernation to do 3 simple things. Number 1, occasionally wake up to monitor the evolution cycles of the species that now populate the galaxy. Number 2, signal the start of the invasion to the Reapers in dark space when it's determined that it is time. And 3, open the door for them by sending a special signal to the Keepers on the Citadel, forcing them to activate the mass relay and begin the massacre. Well, around this time, Sovereign had already completed steps 1 and 2. The galaxy was ripe for the picking. But when that text was sent to the Keepers to start the party, something very unexpected happened. Absolutely nothing. The relay remained off and life continued to hum peacefully on, which for Sovereign was a perplexing and unacceptable outcome. So the Reaper immediately got to work investigating what went wrong and why. He had to find a new way to activate the Citadel as soon as possible, and eventually discovered that to do this, he was going to need a bit of help. Historically, one of my least favorite narrative devices in any kind of story is mind control. I mean, hypnosis, brainwashing, the use of magic, whatever it may be, when it's not done well and you're just making characters act out of their own nature or interest for the sake of advancing the plot, it's just so lame, it's so cheap. However, when it is done well, more subtly and intelligently as a combination of influence and coercion, it can be a very effective and pretty cool method of pushing an already great character firmly onto the path of darkness. Well, it just so happens that one of the Reaper's most sinister weapons is what Mass Effect calls Indoctrination. Every single Reaper, including Sovereign, has this sort of mysterious sinister signal or energy field radiating from it that has a mind-melting effect on organic life forms. Think like a kind of synthetic Lovecraftian horror thing. At first confusing, disorienting, and very subtly suggesting certain behaviors until eventually you have full-on thrall servitude status as long as it suits the Reaper. Well, at some point, Saren Arterius was flying around the galaxy doing his Spectre activities when he came across Sovereign orbiting a small, insignificant world. A vacant ship far larger than any spacecraft he had ever seen in his life, with a construction, a design, and technology that just defied all explanation. When Saren then boarded the vessel to take a closer look, his mind swam with grim excitement. A new toy for him to play with, a tool to dismantle humanity's growing influence, a weapon that would serve him. And Sovereign, scanning the mind of this organic, realized that the pawn he had caught in his web, a Spectre with unfiltered access to the entire galaxy, it was the perfect servant. And so the Reaper made his move, revealing himself fully to Saren, speaking directly into his mind, explaining exactly who he was, explaining the fate of the countless civilizations that had come before this one, explaining very clearly that this cycle would soon repeat again and there was nothing this Turian could do to stop it. Now, I just want you to imagine being in Saren's shoes in that moment. You are the first and only one to learn about the literal end of everything that you know. How harrowing would that be? How isolating? And not only that, but hearing this as the most decorated Spectre in the galaxy, having taken an oath to protect the stability of Citadel space no matter the cost. I mean, despite all of his flaws, that is who Saren is at this point. His life has been dedicated to the service of the greater good, so it's at that moment that this villain pivots completely in what he wants. Instead of wielding Sovereign as a vengeful gavel, he decided he had to honor his duties as a Spectre by doing the unthinkable, aiding the Reapers. If this invasion was truly unstoppable, his only option was to prove the intelligence, the strength, the worth of organic life to these robot fellas firsthand. He is convinced that by offering himself, the Citadel races have a slim chance at salvation, which is better than nothing. But of course, where is the line in that thought between Saren's own will and Sovereign's indoctrination powers, which were surely in full effect in that moment? It's simply impossible to know. And in this way, my friends, Saren establishes himself as one of my personal favorite video game villains. He is in many ways the science fiction edition of Saruman from The Lord of the Rings. And think about it for a second. A being of incredible status, influence, and power who has their deepest ambitions and fears exaggerated and exploited by communing with a tool of an ancient evil, the Palantir for Saruman and Sovereign for Saren. A villain who sees this black wave on the horizon and would much prefer to join the opposition before it breaks. This sort of vain, manipulated effort to save what little they see as still savable in the world of the good. They look at the heroes and think, you're wasting your time, you know? The tragic but still hateable kind of antagonist that feels so passionately they are in the right, but of course are merely being used. It's so good. I just love it. But another key thing that Saren learns after joining the Reaper effort is that Sovereign is being actively worshipped as a god by this species called the Geth, a rogue AI race that have long quarreled with the Citadel, and in them, Saren finds his army of minions he gets to command. The waves of enemies that you, the player, get to pump full of lead all throughout Mass Effect. And then there is this sizable chunk of time here where the actions of Saren and Sovereign are a complete mystery. At some point, this powerful and respected spiritual leader of the Asari, Matriarch Benezia, notices that something is kinda up with the famous Spectre, so she joins his company to try to lead him down the right path. But tragically, she also falls to the indoctrination of the Reaper, joining their effort as a super powerful ally. And well, would you look at that, you suddenly have the shape of a damn good setup for a video game. So now, we get to ask my favorite question: what are we, the player, gonna do to stop all this? Over the years, I have grown to deeply appreciate games that waste no time in tossing the player right into some big, hard-hitting narrative movement in the first 10 minutes. And honestly, I think you would be hard-pressed to find a role-playing game that hits the ground running quite like Mass Effect 1 does. After the player creates their version of Commander Shepard and selects Vanguard, the only perfect class in the game, you take control of your hero just as the crew of the Normandy is en route to the human colony world Eden Prime to covertly pick up something that was found there, a pristinely intact beacon of Prothean origin. And joining Commander Shepard on this mission is a highly respected Turian Spectre called Nihilus, which signals that this is pretty serious business and the Council is closely monitoring the situation. But just seconds later, the Normandy receives a chaotic message from the surface indicating someone else beat you to it. The colony is being attacked, humans are actively being slaughtered, and this haunting image of what looks to be a huge grasping hand thing in the sky. So Shepard and his boys touch down as Nihilus goes on ahead because he's a Spectre. And soon enough, you're fighting through waves of Geth, getting accustomed to the way combat and cover works, while discovering how absolutely ass the default PC key bindings are. But it is only 5 to 10 minutes into this tutorial that we are shown quite a scene.
Saren. Nihilus. This isn't your mission, Saren. What are you doing here?
The Council thought you could use some help on this one.
I wasn't expecting to find the Geth here. The situation's bad.
Don't worry. I've got it under control.
What an amazing little introduction. Saren looks great. The ghastly gray skin, the blue accents, what looks to be a cybernetic Geth arm and eyeballs. The way he just ices his former buddy. It is so good at communicating everything you need to know at this point about the villain and nothing else. I also think it's really interesting when games take this cinematic yet splintered approach to storytelling, because for 95% of Mass Effect 1, you are glued to Shepard's very limited perspective. But then the game will occasionally show moments like this to the player that the commander isn't present for, you know? I mean, literally right after this, the party finds Nihilus's corpse on the ground and this guy nervously tells you exactly what happened, which pretty much communicates the same thing but in a more mysterious, eerie way that I actually quite like. So choices like these from a game development and presentation standpoint might seem small, but dude, they have a huge impact on how the player views a game's narrative, and of course, a game's villain.
Set the charges. Destroy the entire colony. Leave no evidence that we were here.
Now this little scene illustrates another key trait of this antagonist, that he is always at least one step ahead, just out of reach. He's already found the beacon you came here to collect, and he's communicating with it in some way, which can't be good. But when Shepard and his party finally catch up through waves of Geth, Saren is already long gone. Just the Prothean cell phone tower radiating some weird vibe over there, when suddenly the commander is pulled into it where he experiences something inexplicable.
Shepard!
No, don't touch it! Too dangerous!
A little longer than a few minutes later.
We identified the ship that touched down on Eden Prime. The Normandy, a human alliance vessel. It was under the command of Captain Anderson. They managed to save the colony.
And the beacon.
One of the humans may have used it.
This human must be eliminated.
It really is an excellent opening half hour. You have a quick, fun, easy combat system introduced, an intimidating as hell bad guy, a huge amount of mystery, and some wonderful characters already making their presence felt. And of course, upon Shepard waking up from this event, the narrative is flooded with Saren discourse. Who was that? What was he doing? What does a Spectre attacking a human colony mean for the Council? The fact that he killed a fellow agent? That crazy-ass ship he's flying? It's all super disorienting to a first-time player, and once the party heads back to the Citadel to report this incident, there is a very realistic amount of booty-ass bureaucracy you gotta deal with the Council. Because, of course, they don't believe that their top agent could possibly behave this way. They need some concrete proof for accusations so serious. And there is definitely a little bit of anti-human vitriol in the way that this report is received. Then, in a really cool moment, Saren kinda stands trial over Zoom, denying all involvement while smack-talking Shepard and his apparent candidacy for the Spectres.
And this must be your protege, Commander Shepard. The one who let the beacon get destroyed.
Saren despises humanity. That's why he attacked Eden Prime.
Your species needs to learn its place, Shepard. You're not ready to join the Council. You're not even ready to join the Spectres.
God, he's such a prick, isn't he? I love it. Can't even be bothered to show up in person.
This meeting has no purpose. The humans are wasting your time, Counselor, and mine.
And I gotta say, just a wonderful voice acting performance by the super talented Fred Tatasciore, one of the GOATs. And so it falls to Shepard and his ragtag crew to find some way to incriminate the greatest Spectre in the galaxy. You do need some hard evidence, and after hunting around the Citadel, making some new friends, and poking your nose where it definitely shouldn't be, that's exactly what you find. By helping out this Quarian woman, Tali, whose race originally created the Geth, you get your hands on a perfectly preserved Geth memory core, which contains some humongous information. First, a recording of Saren's voice talking about something he is searching for called the Conduit, as well as conveniently admitting to the attack on Eden Prime. And second is, oh my goodness, the first ever details about these mysterious Reapers, which Shepard immediately connects to the vision he experienced, claiming he saw splintered images of the Protheans being wiped out. And suddenly, this is an even bigger deal than anyone first thought. So with all of this information, the Council can't deny what they are being shown any longer. They agree that Saren has indeed gone rogue. However, they don't buy the whole Reapers thing at all. They think Saren is just making that stuff up to control the Geth and do something else for his own personal gain, which it does kind of make sense. Shepard is then selected to become the first ever human Spectre in Citadel history, with his first mission being an obvious one, to track down and bring Saren Arterius to justice by any means necessary. Over the last 5 or so years of making villain videos on this channel, I have come to see certain patterns in the way video game antagonists are often structured. Archetypes within archetypes, if you will. And with Saren, after this extremely strong center stage introduction, he actually pulls a bit of a Houdini and disappears entirely for dozens upon dozens of hours of game time. And this, my friends, plants him into one of my favorite villainous categories on Ghostcharm's periodic table of bad guys. The Kevin McAllisters. Villains who, instead of being all up in your face throughout the experience, prefer to set up some super sinister things before your arrival, constructing a minefield of dangers for you to stumble and struggle through as they remain comfortably out of reach, watching until the very end. And this is really what makes the original Mass Effect so special to me when compared to its sequels. The story is presented like what it truly is, a mystery. Commander Shepard has no idea what Saren is really doing and why, where he's headed. He doesn't know anything about the Protheans, about the Citadel, the nature of the Reapers, etc. So it's only by slowly following Saren's footsteps detective style and very carefully dismantling each one of his villainous efforts along the way that you begin to piece together what's really happening. And it all starts out with these 3 super simple leads. The first, to find an Asari woman named Liara, an expert on Prothean technology that may be able to help Shepard better understand the vision he experienced. Second, to head to the world Pharos, where Geth have been particularly active on the ground. And third, the planet Noveria, where there have been recent reports of Geth sightings up in the snowy mountains. There's really not much to go on. And of course, there are also tons of optional side planets and quests and activities where you have to drive the stupid-ass car around. Damn, I hate the car. But when you investigate each of these 3 leads, you very satisfyingly illuminate some new angle to Saren's villainy or what he's trying to do. Like when you go find Liara, you learn that Saren had a very similar idea. He's been trying to kidnap her to use her expertise to find this so-called conduit that he's hunting for. On Pharos, you learn that Saren sent armies of Geth down here to uncover an ancient sentient plant with ties to the Protheans called the Thorian. He successfully extracted some sort of memory, a piece of knowledge from this thing called the Cipher, which allows him to interpret the Prothean visions with a ton more clarity. Then on the snowy world of Noveria, my favorite of the 3, you are told that Saren is actually this influential investor in the genetic engineering corporation called Binary Helix. And in one of the laboratories here, he's been conducting robust research trying to revive and breed Rachni, a previously extinct, incredibly dangerous insect race that he wants to use as an army. He's also trying to extract from the mind of the Rachni Queen the location of a very specific mass relay he needs to reach this conduit. And I love these moments because you're constantly reminded that Saren is no dummy. He's got so many connections throughout the galaxy, so many ways to amass power and information, and he's pulling every string he's got. Also at the end of Noveria is where you encounter Matriarch Benezia in combat, which honestly is a super tragic character, and she shares some fascinating insight on how influential this villain can be.
People are not themselves around Saren. You come to idolize him, worship him. You would do anything for him. The key is Sovereign, his flagship. It is a dreadnought of incredible size, and its power is extraordinary.
And it's worth noting that throughout all of these events and adventures, your party members, people back at the Citadel, quest givers you interact with, vendors, everyone is constantly talking about Saren. And listen, if you have a villain in that Kevin McAllister mold where they do vanish until the very end, you need this sort of thing to keep their presence felt. I mean, Rex, one of your party members, tells a chilling story about crossing paths with Saren years back during some mercenary work and just feeling like a terrible aura from the guy, so Rex left the job. And then a few days later, all the other mercs he was working alongside turned up dead. Captain Anderson sharing all of his insane first-hand experiences with the fallen Spectre because they used to work together. Garrus is super passionate as a Turian about bringing Saren to justice. Other characters say how terrified they are of him. It's all just wonderfully clear writing. It really does feel like one of the famous characters in this setting suddenly turned evil, and it means something. It's just great. But after completing these initial 3 leads and making some genuine progress in tracking down Saren, Shepard receives an urgent message from the Council that an espionage unit of Solarians has uncovered something on the tropical world of Vermeer. And what you find when you land down on the surface yourself is nothing short of shocking. More levels where you gotta be in the stupid fucking car. On this planet, Saren has been constructing humongous laboratories, capturing scientists to work for him and conducting probably unethical experiments as he attempts to solve yet another genetic puzzle, the Krogan genophage. So this is kind of a whole other rabbit hole, but long story short, the Krogans, what Rex here is, were once such a danger to galactic stability that they were actually poisoned with a DNA-altering weapon that made them unable to procreate. But Saren has seemingly cracked the code on this, hoping to reinforce his Geth and Rachni numbers with Krogans as well, and that is a fighting force I don't think anyone in Citadel space would be able to stop. But far more interesting than that, also within these labs, Saren has been doing some serious private research about the effects of Sovereign's indoctrination, indicating that he was genuinely feeling worried that he wasn't in as control of himself as he thought. But while investigating Saren's private quarters on Virmire, Shepard encounters a second Prothean beacon just like the one you saw on Eden Prime. And after interacting with this one, tweaking out yet again and experiencing more visions, something deeply terrifying occurs.
You are not Saren.
What is that? Some kind of VI interface?
Rudimentary creatures of blood and flesh. You touch my mind, fumbling in ignorance, incapable of understanding.
I don't think this is a VI.
There is a realm of existence so far beyond your own, you cannot even imagine it. I am beyond your comprehension. I am Sovereign. Reaper, a label created by the Protheans to give voice to their destruction. In the end, what they chose to call us is irrelevant. We simply are. Organic life is nothing but a genetic mutation. An accident. Your lives are measured in years and decades. You wither and die. We are eternal, the pinnacle of evolution and existence. Before us, you are nothing. Your extinction is inevitable. We are the end of everything.
This incredible conversation with Sovereign is where we learn so many of the huge plot points that we covered in the first third of this video. It puts into perspective for the very first time just how hopeless the fight against the Reapers really is, how insignificant all you meatbags truly are.
Your civilization is based on the technology of the mass relays. Our technology. By using it, your society develops along the paths we desire. We impose order on the chaos of organic evolution. You exist because we allow it, and you will end because we demand it.
It makes you think of Saren going through the very same thing, alone aboard that ship. The writing of Sovereign's dialogue, the voice, the big red hologram, the background music, it is absolute cinema. Definitely one of my favorite scenes BioWare has ever drawn up, and that is saying something. But soon enough, the time for talking is over. Saren is headed your way, he's extremely pissed off, and Shepard's trying to blow this whole place sky high. But of course, just as you are setting the charge, Saren makes his grand re-entrance into this story.
I applaud you, Shepard. My Geth were utterly convinced the Solarians were the real threat. An impressive diversion. Of course, it was all for nothing. I can't let you disrupt what I've accomplished here. You can't possibly understand what's really at stake. You've seen the vision from the beacons, Shepard. You of all people should understand what the Reapers are capable of. They cannot be stopped. Do not mire yourself in pointless revolt. Do not sacrifice everything for the sake of petty freedoms. The Protheans tried to fight, and they were utterly destroyed. Trillions dead. But what if they had bowed before the invaders? Would the Protheans still exist? Is submission not preferable to extinction?
Do you really believe the Reapers will let us live?
Now you see why I never came forward with this to the Council. We organics are driven by emotion instead of logic. We will fight even when we know we cannot win. But if we work with the Reapers, if we make ourselves useful, think how many lives could be spared. Once I understood this, I joined Sovereign, though I was aware of the
dangers. I had hoped this facility could protect me.
Sovereign's manipulating you and you don't even know it. You're already under its power.
No, Sovereign needs me. If I find the conduit, I've been promised a reprieve from the inevitable. This is my only hope.
This really is his big Saruman moment. He lays it all out there so proudly, but I don't know. I think you can hear in Saren's voice that he isn't 100% convinced of these things himself at times. To me, this is a guy fighting against that tiny speck of reason still flickering in his brain. But hey, if he wants to fight, that is what Shepard has been waiting for. But to be honest, this whole encounter is a little bit funny for me, with him flying around on his green goblin-ass hoverboard up there and his Geth minions just kinda awkwardly wandering around the arena. And even more awkward when the fight suddenly concludes and you get these jarring Avengers-style jump cuts as he takes a nice Earth-sized punch to the schnoz, baby, before escaping to fight another day. Because in classic villain fashion, this was all merely a setback. Saren then heads to the planet of Ilos, his final destination, which was once the center of Prothean research and society, because it's here where the thing we still don't understand, the conduit, awaits. And it's definitely satisfying at this point to feel like this antagonist who's always been 2 or 3 steps ahead is now just like a half step ahead. But Ilos probably is the coolest planet in all of Mass Effect 1. Visually, it's like a cross between Forerunner Halo technology and DE Aztec from Counter-Strike. All these old overgrown courtyards and buildings and laboratories where these people once flourished. And toward the very end, during a merciful break from a car section, you experience this long, melancholy, and incredibly important conversation with a virtual intelligence program left behind by the Protheans named Vigil. And through Vigil, you learn all about the Citadel being the trap that it is, about the Keepers being the key holders of the Reaper's harvest. You learn that the conduit is something the Protheans constructed themselves as they were better understanding mass relay technology, and it is a teleporter that leads from Ilos directly to the heart of the Citadel. Vigil also educates Shepard on the step-by-step horror of the Prothean eradication, and how at the end of it all, facing annihilation, a small group of researchers used the conduit to go to the Citadel and alter the relay signals for future use. That is why Sovereign's text to the Keepers was initially ignored. It's what has given the Citadel races of now the slimmest of chances of stopping the Reapers, and it's of course what eventually gave rise to Saren Arterius. Oh shit, Saren. All that time Shepard spends talking to Vigil means the villain's already on the move, and you know what that means. One last ride in the car, baby. Honestly, it's kinda awesome to see how successfully Saren, and Sovereign for that matter, have executed their plan up to this point. He has begun a surprise assault with Sovereign on the Citadel. And I just want to personally thank on the record whoever at BioWare decided that this last push through the burning Citadel would happen in zero gravity, like on the walls. It is just fantastic. But all good and bad things, well, they must come to an end. And finally, Shepard reaches where else but the Council Chambers, where Saren, about to open the relay, has been waiting. This is what it all comes down to. Spectre versus Spectre.
I was afraid you wouldn't make it in time, Shepard.
In time for what?
The final confrontation. I think we both expected it would end like this. You've lost. You know that, don't you? In a few minutes, Sovereign will have full control of all the Citadel systems. The relay will open. The Reapers will return.
I've still got a few tricks up my sleeve.
You survived our encounter on Vermeer, but I've changed since then. Improved. Sovereign has upgraded me.
You let Sovereign implant you? Are you insane?
I suppose I should thank you, Shepard. After Vermeer, I couldn't stop thinking about what you said. About Sovereign manipulating me. About indoctrination. The doubts began to eat away at me. Sovereign sensed my hesitation. I was implanted to strengthen my resolve. Now my doubts are gone. I believe in Sovereign completely. I understand that the Reapers need organics. Join us, and Sovereign will find a place for you, too.
Sovereign's controlling you through your implants. Don't you see that?
The relationship is symbiotic. organic and machine intertwined, a union of flesh and steel. The strengths of both, the weaknesses of neither. I am a vision of the future, Shepard, the evolution of all organic life. This is our destiny. Join Sovereign and experience a true rebirth.
Sovereign hasn't won yet. I can stop it from taking control of the station. Step aside and the invasion will never happen.
We can't stop it, not forever. You saw the visions. You saw what happened to the Protheans. The Reapers are too powerful.
Some part of you must still realize this is wrong. You can fight this.
Maybe you're right. Maybe there is still a chance for... The implants. Sovereign is too strong. I'm sorry. It is too late for me.
It's not over yet. You can still redeem yourself.
Goodbye, Shepard. Thank you.
Wow, that tiny shred of Saren, the real old Saren that wants to believe what Shepard is saying is possible. He can ultimately overcome the indoctrination, these new implants, and everything else that he has done up to this point. And in that sudden shock of clarity, Saren sees that it isn't so hopeless, that he can do something right here and now to stop the Reapers by immediately removing his usefulness from the equation. It's just amazing. It absolutely makes me question everything about Saren's actions before and how in control he ever was. If maybe a part of him was screaming internally all along the way, unable to stop himself. I guess we'll never know. But hey, if you thought that was the end, you might be forgetting about a certain ageless sentient machine right outside the window. Because this Sovereign guy, well, he's pretty smart. He had the foresight to prepare for Saren to fail him in this exact way, and those implants that Mr. Arterius just mentioned, well, here they are in their full glory. And this final fight is awesome. By far the best boss in all of Mass Effect 1. Honestly, I love this little arena, like a claustrophobic pitted garden. And it's beyond disturbing to see Saren's corpse being used like this, stretched beyond its natural limits like a spider. It's very good stuff. And once you finally grind this thing down and you're able to kill it, Sovereign's shields are short-circuited for just a split second, allowing the Normandy outside to make a run, destroying the Reaper at last. And just like that, the Citadel is saved. The galaxy is saved, and Shepard, along with his entire crew, are celebrated as heroes. Now, I am not exaggerating when I say Saren is easily one of the most underappreciated villains in all of video game history. Even within the Mass Effect series, he seems oddly overlooked in favor of Sovereign, the Reapers at large, or the Elusive Man. But what Saren has, which sets him apart and makes him so compelling to me personally, is the identical stature of the hero. He's just a Turian, just a guy. I mean, he's exceptional, yes, intelligent, dangerous, driven, but he's no superhero. He bleeds just like any organic life form. He feels fear, tremendous fear, that is twisted into evil. He wants badly, at least in the beginning, exactly what Shepard does, to protect the Milky Way regardless of the methods required. And though he is ruthless, never a great person by any measure, he is, ultimately, a perfect puppet at the perfect time for the perfect puppet master. And if he had succeeded here in the end, ushering in the next purge, I am 100% positive that he just as quickly would have been discarded. As the series eventually continues on with Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3, the narrative kind of loses that sense of mystery that I love here so much. But for me, the ghost of Saren is never far behind. A haunting reminder that your actions as a Spectre will drive the course of galactic history for better or for worse, and that even well-intentioned goals, when stained with hatred and warped by the power of something far greater than yourself, can be just enough to bring an entire galaxy to the brink of destruction.